Mr. Kumar, I would like to start with you with a very obvious question of how has COVID-19 changed the consumer expectation from Mahindra First Choice Services?
Okay, first of all, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me here. And I hope everyone is, safe and sound in these tough times. Yeah, the COVID-19 actually has thrown things out of gear for several industries, including ours. For the past 3 months, at least 2 months, we were completely shut. And obviously, our franchise community has been having a tough time and have been having a lot of doubts also on the current situation and the future as well. So the way we have handled the situation is, in 3 ways. One is, how do we ensure that we are protecting our stakeholders, the immediate customer, that is our franchisees. We have about 500 franchisees across the country, 300 for 4-wheelers and 200 for 2-wheeler. How do we protect them and ensure that their spirits are kept up? And secondly, how do we ensure that our customers are also kind of protected during this particular period? Because as you know, the lockdown was suddenly announced and a lot of vehicles were actually lying at our workshops and which were under repair, which could not be completed because of this lockdown situation. That is one part. Second part is, how do we ensure that we restore the situation? How do we, when we reopen, how do we handle the situation in such a way that we are giving certain reassurance to our consumers that their cars are well protected, good hygiene is maintained, and we're also ensuring that contactless service is kind of assured for them, so that the risk of contacting any problem is less. And third thing is that once we open up completely across the country, how do we reinvent ourselves, how do we reboot ourselves so that we give the experience that consumers want in the post-COVID-19 scenario? There are 3-4 things that we are observing which have changed due to COVID-19, which are quite obvious. One is, of course, customers want less and less contact. Earlier, people used to actually prefer coming to the workshops and getting them serviced. We used to do a lot of pick and drop also, but it used to be restricted to about 15 to 20%, maybe 30 to 40% in metro cities, but much less in smaller cities. But I think today, a lot of people will be opting for pick and drop service. One big change. We need to be prepared for that. Second thing is, people would rather have the vehicle service at their doorstep, if it is possible, if the surroundings are amenable to that. If for example, they are living in a big society, the society is willing to give the space and time and facilities for that. That also will probably be preferred by the consumers. And third thing in terms of consumer behavior, which we are seeing as a change, I'm not very sure, it is still too early to say that. Probably it's my personal opinion as well, that to certain extent, people will be preferring to do service themselves. In these last 2 to 3 months, we all have experienced, things that we would have done easily outside. We were trying to do it ourselves, starting from household chores, things like haircut. A lot of my friends got their hair cut by their spouses, and they're not very happy about it. They're okay with it, So that kind of thing. And car getting broken down this is a big issue. So people would be willing to do a little bit of servicing of the car themselves, like periodic maintenance, simple, filter change or simple breakdown maintenance. Those kind of things also will be there. So these are the consumer behavioral changes that we are expecting. And on the franchisee front, and also it will probably get extended to other partners that are our suppliers and vendors. There also, we are seeing a lot of tendency towards containment of working capital. The funds flow, cash flow is going to be a big issue. In the last 2 months, actually, people struggled to pay salaries, right? To purchase spare parts after opening up, because even in the market, people are saying the credit is a thing of past and no credit will be further provided to these people. So how do we ensure that, can we give a solution to our franchisees and our vendors in terms of working capital? Of course, government is trying to do something for MSMEs, but how can we actually add value to them, either expedite the process or provide some solution, if not direct funds to these people? That is one way. And second thing is, they also would like to have some sort of support from us. So what we did during this lockdown period, we extended complete fee waiver. We knew very clearly that they were not working. There's no point in actually charging monthly royalty fees. So we waived it off completely. And on top of that, we also set up a fund to help some of the employees who were either stuck or, a lot of people were out of jobs, especially the contract labor and people who did not have enough savings to sustain them through this tough period. So there we actually, doled out some cash payments in some cases, provided ration, provided transport free of cost to those people to reach their places. So this kind of support also was given to ensure that there is a brand or the franchisor who is willing to take care of the franchisees as such. But that is during this period. But once we open up completely, they will also be looking at the new ways of doing business. How do we ensure that we are adjusting to the new reality, the new normal, and thrive and prosper in that new environment? This is the area where a lot of new habits will have to be taken into consideration. For example, working from home, high levels of digitization. Those things have to be incorporated into our processes, into our interactions with the customers as well. So that also will be looked into in a major way. This is how overall we're trying to see how do we, handle the current situation.
Sure. No, that's very interesting, and I think
this is very valuable. Especially the do-it-yourself maintenance. I think can be really a new sense, which is especially in automobile. I think this can be some early trend. I think very valuable on that side. So over to you, Ashish.
Yeah, Gaurav. In fact, I just like to expand a little bit on that. Even before COVID-19, for the past 2 years, we have been running a program called, there are two names. Initially, we started with Get Dirty with Your Car.
Wow.
And then we said, okay, let us make it, a little more appealing, like go on a date with your car. The basic idea is to invite the customer along with their car to one of our workshops on a Sunday, right? And actually go through the experience of not a major repair, but doing periodic maintenance of your car. A lot of people actually turned up, and they actually enjoyed the experience tremendously. So they got to know about their car, and they became more comfortable around their car. And they all like this idea that I know I have the confidence now. If there is a small breakdown, I can take care of it myself instead of looking around for major help. So that kind of programs will probably find more resonance. Of course, we need to take care of the social distancing issue in a little more elaborate manner now, but it could be the trend in the future.
No, it is. I think I take your point, and this is going to be a big trend in future. I have my own personal experience. I broke my car in terms of one of these days in lockdown, and my battery was because I was not using that car, and went out, and I didn't have any idea what to do, so so I just parked it there and came back walking back home. So it's good for everybody to know what they're driving and how, and they obviously cannot indulge beyond a point because we need a special doing it, but a general maintenance or a regular periodical check, I think, would make a lot of sense. Over to you, Ashley.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. So going on a date with your car certainly sounds exciting. And so, we understand that you've got so many partners, and you yourself have been involved in this concept for about 9 years now. So how has you experienced, in your own way, if you could let us know how a relationship is something that evolves according to you, as an entrepreneur who's a franchisee is also somebody who has that ownership mindset, and he runs his own company. and your group also is somebody who's managing their own group and they're sharing their brand name with those entrepreneurs. How do you maintain that relationship or an equation with them?
Okay, just to give you clarity, we've been there for the past 9 years, but the franchising has been started about 5-6 years back, right? The first and foremost thing with the franchisees is that the franchisee, the value proposition has to be extremely strong. There is a perceived value proposition, and there is also a tangible value proposition. Both the components have to be extremely strong for the relationship to be good. Finally, a franchisee is a budding entrepreneur who wants to have his own thriving business, and he has to succeed in that business. Then obviously he will have lots of respect towards the franchise and the brand. So that's what we focused on. When we started 6 years back, we focused a lot on getting the guy without any experience either in a business, running a business, or even automotive industry, to become an expert in running this workshop within a period of 3 to 6 months. That means we invested a lot in terms of hand-holding before the commercial operations start. That means the setup process itself is quite long. I mean, it takes about 9 to 12 months for a four-wheeler franchise to set up, and for two-wheeler, it is about 2 to 3 months. It's almost like setting up a factory with a lot of license and other things have to be taken for this. So that is where we help them in terms of layout, in terms of design, in terms of procuring material, in terms of even applying for licenses on time, and what kind of things have to be done before. We have a specific program called ASBM, Auto Service Business Management, wherein immediately after issuing LOI, we invite these franchise prospects to our Nasik Mahindra Institute of Quality, and there we teach them about the fundamentals of automotive business, fundamentals of franchising business, how to actually ensure that customers are acquired, and how do we ensure that they are satisfied and they are retained. All those things, and how do we run the operations, how do we manage the human resource element, which is extremely important. To have a satisfied customer, you need to have very satisfied employees also. So all those things will be taught in a thorough manner in about 6 days time, a complete week's program. It has been hugely successful, and all these franchise owners, they first of all understand the criticality or the complexity of this business, which will give them a feeling whether to continue with this or not. Though in our case, the dropouts after attending the business is less than 5%, but it is easy to identify those guys who may not be willing to take up so much of pains early on, rather than having a journey with them and then finding out later. So that is one thing. And secondly, after he starts the business, in the first 6 months, a lot of hand holding in terms of how to conduct business development activities, customer acquisition activities, like service workshops and all those things. And once he becomes expert, we also, of course, during this time, we are also giving a huge support in terms of spare part supply as well. So first 2-3 years, in fact, in our experience, it has been very good. People were highly appreciative of how we were doing this business with them and providing maximum support. But later on, then we quickly realized that as a continuing business, now he has understood how to run the business, the value proposition has to be slightly different. How do we sustain the value proposition after he understands how to run the business? That is the second aspect. That is where the aspects of the customer acquisition on a continuous basis, the understanding the pain points. For example, we are able to provide customers time. We are able to provide lots of ties with insurance companies, but he gets into a working capital problem pretty quickly. He takes lots of credit from the outside. Though we supply more than 50-60% of his requirement of spare parts, he gets into a credit, a vicious cycle. How do we get him out of those things? That is where also we have developed lots of products. Like we have tied up with certain banks, and that is what is helping us, giving them adequate working capital at the right time. And also we have a product called Mask, which is the insurance company tie-up, wherein we give spare parts on credit to the franchisee, but the payment is actually routed through us, so that, franchise owners' actual involvement in funds management of the workshop will be very, very minimal. So these are the kind of very high level of supports at the early stage, before the start of operations, after the start of operations, and once it becomes a steady state, and how do we grow the business along with it. At all the three stages, we have actually developed a very strong value proposition. That is one thing. Secondly, in terms of actual relationships also, we have a very strong field force with proper hierarchy to ensure that there is actual contact. Once in a week, at least, a franchise business manager visits the workshop, does a general audit of the place, sees to it that the processes are managed well, and also checks whether the customer satisfaction is up to the level, if there are any pending cases, those things, and he also addresses all the problems that he's facing. So that way, we actually maintain good relations. And of course, once in quarter, we conduct certain franchise interaction meetings. And once in a year, we also have annual retreats with the franchisees, so that we give some rewards and recognition also with them. So that is how we try to manage the whole thing in a comprehensive manner.
No, this is very helpful, and I think a lot of early stage brands which are now looking at your. This is followed by a lot of young franchise brands. Should really learn from what you implemented. I think you're one of the finest companies which have implemented a strong program, which we call 3 stages of franchise handholding. What we call the dependent stage, which is a little more when a little bit go-to-market kind of capability, training, getting them started, a project support, getting this outlet ready, and so on and so forth, which is very dependent stage. Most of the times, this is a stage where I think the relationship really breaks, or relationship becomes weaker, so to say, and you cannot fill that. This dependent stage is anything from 3 months to 6 months, where the franchise is absolutely dependent on you. And then you come down to what I call interdependent stage, which you mean your smooth functioning, your supply chain, your other issues, your manpower training issues, a lot of smaller issues, which looks like the franchisee lose that, I lose a sale, or I lose sale because of this, and so on and so forth. So at that stage, if you are able to handhold, and then becomes the third stage, which is the independent stage, where you implement what we call the ERR, manage, recognize, and reward. So very few companies I've seen, I should compliment you. And at a group level, you have a lot of value system, which is looking after the partner. And I think particularly in the service, which is very difficult, because I know sometimes in service business is easier said than actually implemented. To implement a program like this, and I can tell you with honesty, only about 5% of top companies in India would have that a full training program, which we very, very critical. And most of the global successful organizations would have a very strong training program, which is 6 to 10 days kind of a program. So I should really compliment your effort on that, because it's especially when you are training operators, because in your business you need operators, people who are involved in their business. This is not a, so to say, a passive investment where you just put money and run a business of service. Service needs demanding.
Absolutely. The most successful franchisees are the guys who are actively involved in the business themselves. Yeah. And talking about hand holding and all that, it is very similar to raising a child. As you conceive and then carry him for 9 months, that is pre-birth. That time also you need to, take a lot of care. And once a child is born, in the early stages, he's heavily dependent on you. So you have to take care of him through the 16 years, educate him well. And then when he's now independent, then also you have to maintain very strong relationships so that he actually achieves a lot in the business and life.
Absolutely. Over to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, there are a couple of questions I thought I'll ask you, right in between them is Mahindra First Choice Services open for conversion franchising, or do they already do it?
This is a very good question, because the business in the service space, and I just elaborate this question, one side you have OEMs, and OEMs are expensive, and after some time you don't want to take, especially when you are entry-level vehicles, you don't want to take back to the OEM. And then you have these independent, which are mom and pop kind of operation, which lack service quality, standardization, today's technology, spare part. Spare part is a very big problem for them because it's genuine spare parts they don't get. And still the percentage of this branded, trusted third-party service providers is only 3 to 4%. Why it is so? Why would we not convert this very large 97% here? I mean, I think OEM, let's forget about OEM because they would be excited for the first 2 years when you have warranties running. But after that, after market, why would that 97 not convert? What is the missing point here, and where do you see this happening?
Yeah, see, when we entered the arena, we also thought that converting the unorganized guys into an organized setup like ours, where we'll be providing lots of support and lots of assurance, will be quite fast. But it has taken its time. The main reason, as per us, is that, the business has been very well established for very long, right? All these independent garage has been doing business in a certain way for very, very long. So initially, when we started this business 6 years back, we did attract a few garages. But within a period of 1 to 1.5 years, we realized that they were set in their ways. They were not willing to either change their processes, enter everything into the system, right? And follow even the software that we provide, which is kind of a requirement, basic requirement from us. So that is why the relationship could not go very, very long. And also we've realized that, see, what are the value proposition that we're providing in a major way? One is the spare parts. Spare parts is a major value proposition. And second is, of course, the customer acquisition. Insurance companies as well as retail customer acquisition. Typically, the problem that we as an industry, the organized service industry faced was that when we started off, we did not have any natural advantage with us, right? We did not have scale to start with. So when we start off at a low level, compared to a OEM dealer, our infrastructure has to match with those of a dealer rather than that of a roadside garage. So initial costs would be high. And spare parts you need to procure at a local level only initially. Costs of spare parts also would be high. And all, in fact, we'll be procuring and supplying, so there will be additional administrative costs. And thirdly, we need to actually spend on marketing to attract these guys to the workshops. So that also is an additional cost compared to a dealer. So in terms of competitiveness, there was no, the ecosystem was not really geared towards organized service chain at that particular time. So then we started realizing one thing, that let us segment the customer into three. One is the guy who is highly quality conscious. Okay, first 2-3 years anyway, everybody goes to OE dealer because warranty is free and the visit frequency is also low. Ticket size is also relatively low. As it keeps going up, they would like to look at other alternatives. Then on the other end, we have highly cost conscious guys who are like fleet operators, or cars which are pretty old, 7 or 8 years old. Then we would just like to maintain the car. We don't want to spend more money on that. But in between, there's a huge segment which wants, a quality service, but at a competitive rates. So that is where we actually entered. And when we made that switch, we were quite successful in C and D class cities, highly successful, because we could actually fill the large gap that existed in terms of supply chain, spare parts, and also the customer acquisition, because single brand did not have enough volumes, but a multi-brand, all brands put together, they were good volumes. And the third factor was also that the real estate costs and the cost of running this thing was relatively low. And the difference in spare parts and labor rates is not very high between a metro and there, correct? So the prohibitive costs in metros made it very difficult to get into new parts. So in metros, now we have changed our business plan. And also, let me tell you our personal experience that initially, when I told you, the kind of support that we were giving was highly useful in setting up the business and running, understanding how to run the business, experiencing it. So that is all anyway already existing with the independent garages. They were not valuing that. when we actually started developing the value proposition on a sustainable basis, that is when people have started appreciating us. The three things that we developed. One is very high amount of relationship with the insurance companies. We have tied up with all the insurance companies for cashless, and also we have tied up with them for customer inflow, and also we have tied up with them for working capital management. These things are going to help substantially the independent garages. So if they see sudden spike in their revenue and margins and profits, they would definitely like to come to us, right? And on the other hand, in terms of systems and software also, initially we were using SAP software, even for our franchise workshops. Then we understood and realized that probably it is too difficult to manage, not so user-friendly, but also difficult to get people to operate it. And somebody comes and works for 3 months, his value shoots up and he leaves. Again, he has to recruit somebody else. Again, he has to go through the pain. So we have developed our own internal software for garage management, which is much more user-friendly, much more mobile-friendly. And for that, you need not actually train a lot as well. So that also has made the adoption much more simplified. So these two factors are now attracting our people in metros, all the independent garages to us. And the third and final thing would be that we are launching, we have actually launched already the express version. Right now, our four-wheeler workshop consists of a standard workshop, everything, including the paint shop. Body shop is there, and regular maintenance, all kinds of services can be done there. But we also said that this kind of setup requires large, area. And getting that in a metro, in a typical hotspot will be difficult. Whereas we will be focusing on periodic maintenance services with express model. Express format we have launched recently. It is again gaining good traction. And this is where we will be converting a lot of independent garages as well and expanding our footprint in the metro cities as well. So with all this together, the value proposition for independent garage also has become quite attractive. And going forward, we will be able to give huge value proposition to them as well.
Absolutely. And I personally feel that the consumer also would have a significant shift from moving from where they would not have the trust and the confidence. And the independent garage, while they've been historically there and they're conveniently located, but you still lack trust. You really don't know, you still cannot have. And when the brand like Mahindra backing First Choice, so I think it brings in a huge amount of trust. And I think this was also largely because 2 or 3 OEMs had a big market share. And because they had a big market share, the third-party service capability as a branded capability chain never worked, because I don't want to name the OEMs, but they were actually monopolizing a little bit on aftermarket. Now, as the market shares are rationalizing, a lot of new brands are coming in, new OEMs are coming in, and they would not be able to build their own capabilities to serve everywhere, like the historic large automobile brands. They would need to have a big shift. Rather, I see a bigger partnership, and I've seen this in consumer durables also. The service market really started where companies stopped making their own service capability, and they would come to a third-party brand like yours and say, why don't you lead that? Say a particular OEM comes in and has only 10 dealerships in India, or 20 dealerships in India, or 30 dealerships. They would never be able to service 900 cities of India. So they would have to then come to you and say, why don't you take additional responsibility, and we authorize you as one of our priority service points to service those capability. And I see as the market start opening up and more automobile brands entering the market and so on and so forth, they would need these capabilities.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
Moving into new technologies of servicing, especially electric vehicles and a lot of other technology. I know at Mahindra there's a lot of focus going on at a group level on the last mile mobility and specialty vehicles and so on and so forth. So is the service arm of yours is also moving, gearing up those capabilities?
Absolutely, we are future ready, but at the same time, we need to attain certain scale to actually invest heavily into those areas. The future prospects are very bright. Unless the electric vehicle industry becomes commercially viable, the big numbers will not be coming. So we are ready. We're actually starting a program wherein we will be taking some of our franchisees to our electric factory and then train them on electric vehicles, right? So, and also we are tying up with another company within our mobility services sector to ensure that their vehicles, which are majorly electric, will get serviced at our service centers, metros.
Yeah, I think there can be a lot of value addition. Even charging infrastructure can come to your stations. This can actually bring in better throughput for the business. I think detailing can be another big opportunity, which I think is has a now full industry been established. And what you said, direct to home service capability. So all these enhance the capability of
absolutely and retrofitting for electric vehicles in future. You know, electric vehicles once they become a big success, a lot of people would be huge population of cars, you know, ICE cars, which will try to get converted into electric vehicles. So that retrofitment also, I think, is going to be a huge opportunity for us, especially the footprint.
Absolutely, what happened in CNG, you know, people converted from this to CNG. It was a big opportunity, but this is complex, and it will not be done by the old conventional way. It's a very, very complex shift of engineering. So, Ashita, your questions further?
Yeah. So there are a lot of questions, you know, which are pouring in. So I'll just pick up a couple of them from there. Is that you know, is there anything that you do for tier 2 and tier 3 cities in specific in comparison to metros to give them a little more support?
What do we do especially for them? One thing is that spare parts. The spare parts supply system is quite strong in metros. In fact, retailers, distributors are very, very strong there. Whereas the moment you go beyond 100 kilometers from a metro, the supply chain becomes pretty weak. That is where we have established close to 30 hubs, which are basically the warehouses where we do the procurement of parts and keep them in sufficient quantities to supply to the franchisees across the country, so that, you know, any franchisee is located within, I would say, 200 kilometers radius of that particular hub. And these hubs also, we actually provide the spare parts right to their doorstep free of cost. So that's a huge value for them. And secondly, here you need to do a lot of business development activities, just slightly different from what we do in metro cities. You know, a lot of close contact activities have to be done. You know, to go and reach out to customers to get them come to you, because they're not present in your town. You're covering actually 30-40 towns within your vicinity. So those are the kind of specialized programs that we do for them.
Sure, sure. And do you support them in any way with respect to marketing, which is local in nature?
Yeah, true. We it's a shared cost. Marketing cost generally, the business development cost. Some part of it is shared by the franchisee, and it is shared by us. Especially the sharing is higher in the initial period, in the first 1 year or 2 years, and later on it gradually drops down as it becomes more and more independent.
Sure.
Add on that, we will be wrong if you don't pick up your mind in terms of, you know, what has you seen in the last, say, 10 years or in the profile of franchising. So what has worked for some profile and what has not worked for it, and specifically for your business, what kind of profile you think the franchisees have to come and they fit the best, and maybe some advice which you would have for potential franchisees who want to get into business and wants to partner with established brands like.
Yeah. So the one profile which we discussed earlier also, which has really worked for us, is the guy. He need not be having automotive experience. He need not have a business experience also, but he should have passion for the business. He should be willing to spend time and give time and resources to this business. The guy who is focused generally does very, very well. We have, as per our business plan with the franchisees, it takes about a year and a half for him to break even. You know, but there are cases where the entrepreneur is so passionate and he has maintained very good relationship with the employees as well as the customers. He was able to break even within 6 months. So it is all it all comes down to how much you are focused and how much service oriented you are, how well you are able to maintain relationships with customers and your employees. See, taking care of your employees also is a very, very important aspect. You cannot treat your employees like dirt and expect the customer satisfaction to be very, very high. So this is a crucial aspect which you have seen. Whoever have taken care of their employees well tended to actually do well as well. Okay, and also the investor types who would like to actually put money and then later on let it run by others or some of the close relatives, that actually has not worked much also. And one more parameter just keeping my mind is that, yeah, the guy who spends lavishly on infrastructure, typically we advise all of them, please don't spend too much on capital, right? You need to spend money and on the working capital, initial funding of the losses and funding of your spare parts, in a very efficient manner. That is where we should be focusing on. If you spend too much money in the initial period, your return expectations also will be high and you will also get into problems faster. So those guys who are prudent fiscally, they also tend to do quite well here.
Very good advice. I think it's always good to have optimized capex. So you should not, this is not a home you're building, this is a business which has to create a return. And you need to sweat out every single dollar you invest on your business. So one has to optimize your capex and also optimize your opex, while you need to have working capital for passing the gestation. And one of the problem I saw, and which is why I would like to comment on, is that whenever people wanted to be an operator, they sometimes lack capital. So we always saw the conflict between these investors, but the investors have money, but they don't want to put time. And people who want to put time, who are hands-on, they can go behind the counter, meet the clients, meet the consumers, didn't have capital. So this was a big fight in India. And now with their two-wheeler model, they've actually brought the capex so down so that this can be an absolutely great idea in today's time for a lot of entrepreneurs. I know at this stage, this is because of this job losses and other things going on. People want to have their financial freedom in their control. They need to be more in control. So I think the two-wheeler franchise, if you can just talk a little bit on that, why you created that, why you saw an opportunity in that, and how it can empower thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs across India who can benefit from this program.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's one particular profile we were interested in very highly initially also, the service professional at the OEMs or at the dealerships. These are the guys who are ideal for us because they have the experience, they know the processes, they know how to handle the customers, and on top of that, they're not investor kind of people. So if we could provide support to them financially and ensure that the capital requirement comes down drastically, we were very sure that this would really take off. So we created two formats. One is, of course, within the two-wheeler, four-wheeler itself, we created this express format where the capital requirement comes down from close to 1 crore to about 20-25 lakhs. So that actually makes the job of getting into this easier for these service professionals, the typical service professional, right? And with two-wheeler, it has been made even easier because two-wheeler probably 15 lakhs is the money that you need to actually spend. And part of that actually can be taken as a loan also. And the other thing that we have realized with two-wheeler is that the scale is tremendous. We're talking about, CAPA, which is like probably 7 to 8 times that of four-wheeler, and the sales on a yearly basis also is multiple times that of four-wheeler, correct? And the two-wheeler customer also moves out of OEM very, very fast. Within 1 year, he's out. So that is another area where if you can actually turn around the vehicles faster, the ticket size could be lower, but the number of workshops in a typical city can be very high with this. That means you can actually share the operating costs like marketing, business development costs across large number of workshops. So this makes a huge sense. So that's why we entered, and we just started about a year and a half, 2 years back, and we have seen tremendous response so far. And post-COVID-19 situation, as you rightly put, there are lots of job losses. There are lots of people who are actually going back to their native place and would not like to come back to the big cities. And for those guys, it will be an ideal situation because we are quite strong in remote areas of the country, and we're also quite strong in both four-wheeler as well as two-wheeler. For them, it will be a great opportunity, and it will be a great honor for them actually to be associated with them.
Absolutely. And I looked at the model, and I personally very impressed on that model. It can empower thousands of entrepreneurs, needs a very small infrastructure, low rental, a very big sustainability in the business model. And you can start with a little low investment, but you need to be an operator. You need to be taking control of your business, run day to day, and manage a little bit of team around you. And if you're able to do that, then this business is great. Ashita, over to you. You're mute, Ashita.
Yeah, sorry. So there are a couple of questions that people are wanting to ask that do we get preference in terms of servicing Mahindra cars?
See, having a brand name of Mahindra is both an advantage and a disadvantage. It is an advantage because Mahindra brand is there, name is there. The Mahindra vehicles tend to come to us little more, but not too much. Mahindra market share is say about 12 to 13% in vehicle population today. And in terms of number of vehicles, number of job cards, we get maybe 15, 16%, not more. Initially, it could be high. See, when you start a workshop, a lot of people tend to think this is Mahindra workshop. And then slowly they realize actually it is a multi-brand workshop, right? After that, other brands also start coming in, and a natural share of the population, the same thing is applied here also. So Maruti vehicles come to us maximum, and Mahindra follows that actual share plus maybe 3-4% extra. But in terms of value, it will be higher because these are bigger vehicles, and the ticket sizes tend to be higher. So in terms of value, it could be 20-25%. Yeah, but of course, our support in terms of spare parts and others will be excellent there, definitely. But we're not dependent only on Mahindra. We are actually able to attract all the other cars as well to our fold.
Sure. So does that really attract the commercial as well as the luxury vehicles also as a bouquet?
True, luxury vehicles also tend to come to us, but right now we've been focusing on the cars that that are up to about 15 to 20 lakh, right? We're not going beyond that. We don't want to be everything to everyone. So as and when we make an entry into the luxury segment, it will be on a planned way, and it's a different strategy. So luxury vehicles are a little out of focus right now, but all the other brands, especially difficult to get spare parts brands, also are high priority for us.
And what is happening because Mahindra has a big focus on becoming a global automobile player. And what is the first choice focus? I mean, is international on agenda? Because I personally feel markets which would be like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, other places, and even Southeast Asia, Africa, North Africa, GCC has a huge market for a brand like yours. Is your brand considering going international, and is there a plan in market? Because I personally feel that India has a huge opportunity, and honestly on Franchiseindia side, we always encourage why we do not build Indian brands which are going global. Why we continue to bring in global brands to India?
Yeah, very true. There is huge potential, no doubt about it. It is definitely on the agenda also, but not in the near future, because see, our market share is all branded, organized service chains put together just 4%. We need to take this to 20, 25%, 30%. In developed world, organized service chains hold 1/3 share. 1/3 is held by OEMs and 1/3 is held by the independent garages there also. So we need to fill this gap wherein we'll be extremely busy, right? So we don't want to defocus and do things other than this at this moment, but 3 years, 4 years down the line, I definitely see a possibility, and it will be of high interest also for us to go there. On the other hand, we have private label branded spare parts. So these are branded generics, things like oil, which is consumable, basically high volume consumables. These are the ones where we have developed our own MFC labeled parts. And this is what we are supplying to our franchisees. And we're also having a parallel distribution and retail channel as well. So we supply to distributors, appointed distributors, they supply to the retailers in turn they supply to the independent mechanics. So that is where probably we will go international, little earlier. And there have been some calls from African countries, from Gulf also, to start our brand over there, or at least to give a master franchising. It is definitely a big opportunity, but we are so tied up with the fervent growth, the feverish growth that is happening here. We want to actually win at home majorly and then expand into other areas.
Very helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, Mr. Kumar, we understand, by how you're talking about your business, that you're really passionate about, your business, and I'm sure, it would really go high in terms of numbers. But I really want to look at it from the other side also. Past 100 days, what Mr. Kumar, apart from Mahindra First Choice Services, has been doing?
Helping wife a lot, sharing household chores, getting a glimpse of what a retired life could be, especially if you're living in remote areas where household help may not be available. Those kind of things. At the same time, it has given us time to introspect and then reset priorities. We quickly realize that whatever material things that are lying around, maybe about 20% are actually needed. 80% are simply not needed. Even after removing all the clutter, right? For example, clothes. What kind of clothes we have? What kind of shoes? We're not wearing shoes at all. Forget, formal shoes, even sports shoes. Nothing is going to be worn. So to lead, but in spite of all this, you can actually lead a happy life if your relationships are good. That is extremely important. Finally, it all comes down to that. If you have harmony at home, harmony with your friends and near and dear ones, that is the life you can actually enjoy without having this artificial meaning of success. That I have to have a flashy car, I have to have a flashy house, I need to be part of a big club membership, and all those things are not required. So it is not that those things are going to go out of fashion. Once we get back, all those things are going to matter to us, because we cannot be, we're not cavemen, right? We'll not be stuck in our homes. But at the same time, this should be of higher priority for us. Maintain good relationships and develop a hobby, which, for very, very long, I tried to develop meditation. I could not. I always thought, it's too busy. Whenever I tried to do it for 5-10 times, I could not sit for long periods. My wife is a yoga teacher. She takes yoga classes online. Earlier, I was not joining. So since I have nothing to do, especially she gets up in the morning, 7 to 8, there's no way you can sleep. You have to get up. So I also participated in that. And immediately after that, I started practicing meditation. It has brought huge change. Now I'm able to sit for 30 minutes, continuously, which is good. It actually improves your focus. You'll get the focus, the kind of focus you had when you were a child, back with meditation. And there are other things also, like some people like singing. They have taken to singing in a passionate way. They are getting a lot of recordings on Smule app, which has become very famous, and they're sending it to us to listen to it, and then you can even YouTube is so popular. You can actually learn dancing on your own. Anything, whatever you wanted to do. Somebody wanted to actually become a movie director, so start making small films. Start making small videos at home, and then develop a script. All these things are possible. And another realization that has come to us is that even when we go to office, we actually take most of the decisions during meetings. That means when we are interacting with people. And interaction with people need not be physical face-to-face. It can be through the computer also. The meeting, we have all realized that, working from home can be sometimes probably more productive than sitting in a meeting and discussing other things. Of course, going to an office, socially interacting with each other, and having that, water cooler chit chat also is extremely important. Socially, you need to have that kind of outlets also. But the productivity, we have understood a little more of how we deliver productivity at our office and how we're able to do the same thing at home. Quickly finish a meeting, in between do something else which is not related to office and come back for a meeting, but also spend maybe half an hour on your own where you need to do thinking and need to do working on your own. That also is possible. So all these things are giving us new, perspectives into personal and professional life.
Absolutely. And I should also try some meditation. I think I've been also thinking on doing it, but maybe that's a good advice. And you're right. I think this is a new change, a new normal for all of us. And this has taught us how to balance our lives and for everybody. And for many, many years, we were just repeating ourselves. And we probably are forced to get into and start thinking that what was ideal to do and why we needed all that, what we were doing. And I think we will be more wiser, and all of us, going back to the normal again. So I start final remarks from your side, and Mr. Vijay, we would like to hear if any message you want to give, because Franchiseindia has a huge community of entrepreneurs across. So if any message you want to give to all the entrepreneurs out there, especially looking at these times, what is your advice to them?
Sure.
Ashraf,
you're starting with you, and then I will take.
Yes. So I think it's it's a every business. I understand every entrepreneur who takes up an opportunity, there are risks and opportunity available at the same time. So every entrepreneur has to mitigate risk at the maximum. But hearing the opportunity, I feel Mahindra has already done a lot of things to help entrepreneurs to live up to their dreams. In these situations also. And I think it was brilliant understanding and learning about the automotive service industry as well. And look forward to, having that at a different level. And I feel that a few things that you're doing for franchisees are wonderful, which is like a cashless insurance or a working capital or association with banks. I think that's something which really helps an entrepreneur who does business either for the first time or is doing anything else. But it really helps him transform and be profitable business sooner than what he expects to.
Yeah. Thank you once again for having me here. To the franchisee community in general and the prospective franchisees who are out there, my only advice would be that, before accepting any franchise, please don't fall for the glitzy presentations or perceived brand value. Actually get on the ground, talk to consumers, talk to customers, talk to fellow franchisees, and evaluate for yourself what kind of support and the value proposition the brand is giving, to what extent what they're saying is accurate, right? Understand those things, and then put in your money and your passion and your resources fully, you will be successful. Franchise business will definitely be much more, I would say, successful and little less risky also compared to an independent business, because of obvious advantages: an established business model which is there, established value proposition which is there, and shared operating costs are there, and also shared costs of procuring materials and parts, something like that. So all those things are huge advantages. And the post COVID-19, I'm also saying that the tendency will be more towards essential services rather than discernible or luxury kind of services. For example, in our case, we have come back very quickly. We started opening from 15th of May, and today we are at 90% workshops are all operational across the country. probably in a couple of days, will reach 100%. And activity level has already reached 70% of what a normal month would be. And so that means we are coming back very, very fast, because it is an essential service. You cannot have a vehicle which cannot run, and moving around, all said and done, even in this situation, is quite essential. In fact, I was reading a Stephen King novel some time back. There, due to a pandemic, much bigger calamity like this, only a few people were left in the world. So which professions were the most valued at that time? There were only two. One was doctors. Doctors, you fall sick, you need doctors, whether you have 10 billion people or just a few lakhs of people. And the second one are the engineers, especially the maintenance engineers. They have to ensure that things are up and running. Even a doctor will not be helpful if there is no ventilator which is working well, right? So that way falls under the essential service. So you can safely invest in this particular franchising with a pretty strong brand like us, and you will actually do very, very well pre-COVID, COVID, or post-COVID. So that is just the message I would like to give. Thank you very much for having me once again.